Audio.
Good morning, everyone. We'll start with Namo Tassa. And the sutta, I would just want to say good morning to everyone here and happy birthday, Holly. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namasami. Excuse us for being a little bit late. We just still working out the techno.
We're spot on.
Oh, we're spot on.
We're spot
Okay. So yeah, we're still working the technology. It's a big learning curve for me. So today we're going to have part 2 of the greater discourse on the elephant's footprint. And that's in the Middle Lakes Discourses, and it's number 28. And it's a really interesting sutta because this is a Venerable Sāriputta, and he's teaching a group of monks. And last week I said it was kind of a tough love sutta. But there is the element of metta tucked in there. You have to know what Venerable Sāriputta is referring to, because he does pull in other teachings that the Lord Buddha had given. So I'll point those out as we go along. So I'm going to have to find, did I shrink the wrong one?
Yep. So,
okay.
Not that one, this one, the one with our faces on it.
Okay. All right. I guess what is going to...
And then the next tab over.
Okay, here's this.
Yeah.
Okay, so... And this is a way to hide this one. This one can...
Press the orange button.
Okay, that one there. Okay, so...
Hey.
Okay. So then I will share the sutta, and this is Bhante Sujato's... That's not right. Share the sutta. There it is. So now, how can I get this one somewhere else? I want to be able to read. It's going to block some of the...
All right, so I prefer to do full screen on the Zoom first. But why don't we just...
There, thank you.
Do that.
Okay, great.
There, readable?
All right, so now I think we can start reading. Everyone can see the sutta? Yeah, we just wanted to make sure we saw it. Okay, so this is the Mahāhatthipadopamasutta. And the hati is the word for elephant, and padopama is a footprint. Maha is great. And the beautiful thing is the elephant is a symbol of it's considered a naga in the time of the Buddha, a great being. So now, and we know too that elephants are wise. So I'm going to kind of skim over this because we read it last week, and if you want to hear a little more detail about the first part, you can go. But anyway, just as the footprints of all creatures that walk can fit inside the elephant's footprint, So an elephant's footprint is said to be the biggest of all.
Yeah, when we were in Thailand.
We have to probably skim through,
Okay.
but you saw one. You
Yeah,
saw how big.
we saw the footprint of an elephant, not the elephant itself, but we saw it in the mud, and it was like, it's getting dark. I think we need to get out of this neck of the woods.
So, yeah, so a pretty impressive animal. And if you saw the footprint, you'd say, wow. I saw a cougar footprint and I thought, wow, that's a big animal too. But elephant's even larger. So, in the same way, all skillful qualities are included in the Four Noble Truths. And then he goes into the noble truth of suffering, the origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. And so this is going to encompass the Four Noble Truths, and it's going to emphasize a certain aspect. And what is the noble truth of suffering? Rebirth is suffering, old age is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness, and distress are suffering. Not getting what you wish for is suffering. In brief, the five grasping aggregates are suffering. It's the Panchupadana khandas. And if you look at what the list here, rebirth, this is a rebirth in the body, but it's also nama rupa, name and form. And that is a shorthand for the five aggregates, mentality and materiality. So then you have the body, and then body being born, aging, and dying, and then there's the mental aspect that's associated with that. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. So that's why he's saying, in brief, the five aggregates are suffering. And so, and then what are the five grasping aggregates? They're as follows: the grasping aggregate of form, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. And so Bhante Sujato translates sankhara as choices. And many people have argued to his face about this choice of translation. And he insists that it's correct. And in the comic sense, this is what he believes is the karma, is our what choices we make, good and bad. So here, sankhara is accumulation of mental activity that is clung to. So sankhara is also translated as volitional formations. It does have an idea of forming, of coming, of creating, of
Fabrication, creating the
fabrication.
fabric of the experience.
Yeah.
And there is a choice within that, but sometimes it makes it sound very intentional, and it can be a very subtle intentionality, and it still has comic weight.
So therefore, Bhante Sujato says form, volition, willed activities. There's a lot of different ways sankhara has been translated.
It's a rich place for practice.
So then this is Sāriputta speaking to the monks. I'm sorry, we're kind of getting through it, but so
We're gonna get to the really cool stuff.
well,
This is really cool
it's all
too.
cool. It's all cool, and I couldn't get through it last week, so I'm trying not to get too detailed at this point. But what is the grasping aggregate of form? So Venerable Sāriputta spends a lot of time on this detail. The four principal states and form derived from the principal state. So that's dhatu. And so this is Mahāhatthipadopamasutta. So there's four great elements. So the four great principal states is another way of translating this. The elements of earth, water, fire, and air. And what is the earth element? The earth element may be interior and exterior. And what is the interior earth element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that is hard, solid, appropriated. So this is a quality. It's hard and solid, and appropriated at birth. And this includes head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, undigested food, feces, or anything else that's internal pertaining to an individual that is hard, solid, and appropriated. So this is a classic description of the earth element in terms of the body, but we can use the hardness and solidity, the sense of solidity in our meditation when we're in a sitting meditation. We can actually experience earth directly by feeling the weight of our body, to feel the softness and hardness of the body, the sense of solidity. This is called the interior earth element. The interior earth element and the exterior earth element are just earth element. This should be truly seen, this word here, seen, with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. So the contemplation of the elements is to help eradicate this self-clinging, that this is mine, this is me, this is myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the earth element, detaching the mind from the earth element. So this is the insight, yatha bhutang, as it is in reality of such nature. You see the true nature. Seeing is it has to do with insight practice. Then there's the wisdom, correct understanding with wisdom, and this is seeing, diswa, having seen. But vipassana also is talking about seeing, and the sight implies understanding, just like in English when I say, I see, I understand, I see. There comes a time when the exterior water element flares up. At that time, the exterior earth element vanishes. So this is flooding. So for all its great age, the earth element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish.
You can see that he's kind of talked about dukkha, and then he talked about anatta, the not self characteristic, and now he's going into the third, impermanence. And these are this sutta just basically
Yeah.
gives you the whole realm of
Yeah.
vipassana practice.
So for its great age, this is also age, but it's also large and great. And I think Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated as great as it is. So this sense of this, the earth we think has been around forever. If we don't know any better, we would say, oh yeah. And so that's the age aspect of it, but also that so great, so large. And what then of this ephemeral body appropriated by craving? So this craving is what keeps us in rebirth, in samsara. Do you have Bhante Bodhi's translation of that? What of this ephemeral body appropriated by craving, rather than I or mine or I am, they consider it to be none of these things. So not considering this body or anything external that's hard or solid, solidified as mine. And things in our lives we consider our homes, our cars, our spouses, whatever, mine, part of me, part of my identity. So this is where the tough love starts to come in here, along with this insight. He's delving into the insight practice with, and along with the elements that are associated with the elements. I mean, so if others abuse, attack, harass, and trouble that mendicant, they understand. This painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me. So I'm going to get back to this. It comes up in the end, but we're going to go through all the elements and we're going to focus on this. That's dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. They see that contact, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness are impermanent. So I'll get into more detail with this part. So someone has insulted us, and so usually we might think, oh, they've insulted me, and then I get enraged at them. But instead, the Sāriputta is saying, Venerable Sāriputta is saying, we see it as unpleasant Vedana, unpleasant contact. It's dukkha Vedana, unpleasant, painful, contact at the ear. So dependent on contact, they see contact, feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness are impermanent. Based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided. So the insight practice is calming the mind down. Others might treat that mendicant with disliking, loathing, and detestation. That's being detesting someone, I guess. Striking them with fists, stones, sticks, and swords. They understand this body is such that fists, stones, sticks, and swords strike it. But the Buddha has said in the advice to the simile of on the simile of the saw, even if low-down bandits were to sever you limb from limb with a two-handled saw, anyone who had a malevolent thought on account of that would not be following my instructions. So this is a tough, this is a, like a really high bar here, right? And we'll get into this more. This is the simile of the saw instructs us to not allow our mind to be disturbed and to have compassion for the other person's welfare, and then pervading the all-encompassing world with a heart of loving kindness. But we need to have been developing metta to be all along. If we encounter either verbal abuse or physical abuse, to be able to have a mind that's unperturbed, that's quite a challenging request of us as practitioners. But I think if we, as much as we can, balance our mind, if we start with the little things, like somebody making a rude comment or something like that, then when things get more difficult in our lives, then our minds can be more balanced. And you were going to say something.
Yes, I'm looking at Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. So after he's recalled the simile of the saw, he says, tireless energy shall be aroused in me and unremitting mindfulness established.
That's what we're getting to here. Yeah, but thank you.
So it's this, I want to call out the tireless energy. Now it's like we're doing this recollection, but how much energy are we putting into it? We're putting into it the kind of energy that is sustainable. So it's tireless. It's like it's self-nourishing in the way that we're attending to it. So when we call up these even very strong similes, the way that we pick them up and we investigate further is with a equanimity. We're talking about equanimity, but we're talking about also an evenness of the mind, so that the mind is not becoming depleted nor overly agitated.
I'm trying to find where I was trying to be able to see this, but now I can't get the edge of it here.
Can I help?
Yeah, so how do I get back to? Oops.
Not like that. Flying screens. Okay, so you want to go back to the sutta, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's this one.
Yeah, but I don't.
And then you can go between the two. I'm going to pull it down on your screen just a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's several pages, I guess. Okay, so I navigated it away from it.
Yeah, so here's your notes, and here's the sutta notes. And now it's far enough down on the screen that the Zoom pop-ups are obscuring our ability to access the controls.
Okay, well,
It's like someone severing off the limbs of access.
So so my energy shall be roused up and unflagging, my mindfulness established and lucid, my body tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind immersed in samadhi. So here is the samadhi and the vipassana working together to help us in the more challenging situations. So just considering this is a lot, if you just focus on Vedana, this is unpleasant Vedana. That would be really hard if somebody's attacking you physically, but well, let's say you're ill. If you're experiencing illness, the body's assailed by illness. And you can't take that personally, be kind of foolish, actually. So it's just the nature of the body. The body is fragile. So using the mindfulness, so there's energy, which Nyanaka was talking about, being roused up. This is a virya. This is a samavayama. So we're abandoning unwholesome states of anger and hatred, and we're bringing up energy for wholesomeness. And a part of that wholesomeness is keeping our mindfulness established and lucid, the mind lucid, and the body will become tranquil and undisturbed, and mind immersed in samadhi. So we also need to be not only developing loving kindness, but the samatha, the calmness of mind, and then the unification of mind that can come from that. Now, this is the tough life again.
Okay, I want to pause with the Pali sentence there. Avradam ko paname viryang bhavisati asalinang. The first word of that is about the arousal part, so the bringing up of the virya, the energy. What I like to note, though, is there's also another, it's the same root, but another way that it's translated is also pleased, contented, satisfied with. So the energy that we're rousing with has that sense that I feel is a nourishment, a continuity of the practice. There's also kind of a delight, a quiet delight in our having our energy such that it is called unflagging by Bhante Sujato. I like the untiring, the sustainable.
Okay, so we're going to go over this again because it ellipses.
Yes.
So so we might save some of that so we can get through.
Okay. All right.
Otherwise,
it's just such a key. It came up this morning, and it's such a key and powerful point in the
okay,
sutta.
so we can get through it.
Great.
So what? So So it says, while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful may not be established in them. So they're thinking about what the Buddha had taught, this Dhamma, and then it's still they still may be having difficulty when they're being attacked to establish equanimity. So in that case, they stir up a sense of urgency. It's my loss, my misfortune, that while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, based on the skillful, equanimity based on the skillful does not become established in me. It's like a daughter-in-law who stirs up a sense of urgency when she sees her father-in-law. But if while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on skillful does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. So, yeah, women were married into families and they had to please their family. So I think of maybe pleasing the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Yeah, it's a hard simile for most of us to relate to, but just to bring up this sense of urgency. So at that point, much is done by a mendicant if they can bring up a sense of equanimity. And we're going to go through the other elements quickly. And
should I comment on the daughter-in-law?
No.
Okay.
Because we won't get through the sutta otherwise.
I can.
What is the water element? The water element may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior water element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that's watery, and appropriated. This includes bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, snot, synovial fluid, urine, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's watery, and appropriated. So we're just going to go. We can look at you can look at the other recording if you want to get more detail on this one. This is called the interior water element. The interior water element and the exterior water element are just water element. This should be truly seen with right understanding like this. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the water element, detaching the mind from the water element. There is a time when the exterior water element flares up. It sweeps away villages, towns, countries, and regions. We're seeing this.
Yeah.
In this era. There comes a time when water in the ocean sinks down 100 leagues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 700 leagues. And this is drought, and we're also seeing this in parts of the world. There comes a time when the oceans stand just 7 palms deep, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or even 1 palm deep. There comes a time when the water in the ocean stands just 7 fathoms deep, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or even just 1 fathom deep. There comes a time when the water in the ocean stands just a half fathom deep, waist deep, or knee deep, or even an ankle deep. There comes a time when there's not even enough water left in the great ocean to wet the tip of a toe. So for all its great age, the water element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. So this is just another reflection on impermanence. What of this inferior body appropriated by craving, rather than I or mine or I am, they consider it to be none of these things. And then this is ellipsed from the first one.
It goes through everything, including the simile of the saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that again at the end. While recollecting the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does not become stabilized in them. Equanimity based on the skillful does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. So that's just describing if terrible things happen to us, if we can still keep established in equanimity, that's wonderful. At this point, much has been done by a mendicant. And what is the fire element? The fire element may be interior or exterior. What is the interior fire element? Anything interior pertaining to an individual that's fiery, and appropriated. This includes that which warms, which ages, which heats you up when feverish, that which properly digests food and drinks, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's fiery, and appropriated. So this is metabolism and digestion, and it's actually chemically the same as fire. It's kind of interesting. Same chemical reactions going on. This is called the interior fire element. The interior fire element and the exterior fire element are just fire element. This should be truly seen with right understanding. Like this is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the fire element, detaching from the mind from the fire element. There comes a time when the exterior fire element flares up. It burns up villages, towns, cities, countries, and regions until it reaches a green field, a roadside, a cliff, a body of water, cleared parkland, where it's extinguished due to not being fed. So we're familiar also with fire going out of control.
Yeah.
There comes a time when they go looking for a fire, thinking just a chicken feather or a scrap of sinew as kindling. And I've heard in refugees camps where they go searching for fuel for their cooking. They have to, in some places in the world, people walk miles just to get enough firewood to heat their home, or so for all its great age, the fire element will be revealed as impermanent, liable to end, vanish, and perish. What of this ephemeral body appropriated by craving, rather than I or mind or I am, they consider it to be none of these things. If while recollecting the Buddha, the teaching and the Sangha in this way, equanimity based on the skillful does become stabilized in them, they're happy with that. At this point, much has been done by a mendicant. This is like almost an understatement. This is that we can maintain equanimity even if our lives are being threatened. Mm-hmm. And what is the air element? The air element may be interior or exterior. And what is the interior air element? Anything internal pertaining to an individual that's airy, appropriated. This includes winds that go up or down, winds in the belly or bowels, winds that flow through the limbs, in-breaths and out-breaths, or anything else internal pertaining to an individual that's airy, and appropriated, excuse me. So the in and out breathing is what we commonly use as a focus for meditation. And some people sense that movement through the body that's considered wind.
Yeah, and I'm not fond of him translating this as air element. In the time of the teachings, it really would be called the wind element. It's more about the movement than like the chemical composition of air. So I do prefer that we call it the wind element.
Anyway, if it depends on how you look at it. So it can, I use both. I use both air
Yeah.
and wind, depending on how I'm working with it. So this should be truly seen with right understanding, like this is not mine. I am not this is not myself. When you truly see with right understanding, you grow disillusioned with the air element, detaching the mind from the air element. There comes a time when the exterior air element flares up. It sweeps away villages, towns, cities, countries, and regions. There comes a time in the last month of summer when they look for wind by using a palm leaf or a fan, and even grasses in the drip fringe of a thatch roof do not stir, don't stir. So this is how still the air can be. So this is what Yannick is referring to. It's more the movement.
Otherwise it gets conflated with the space element.
Well, we're coming to that.
Okay.
But air, but also if you're thinking of air, that we need air to breathe and that we will die if we don't have that. And then it's an elemental property, and it helps it makes sense to a Western mind if you say air, but also wind. There's both aspects of that. So what then of this ephemeral body appropriated by craving rather than I or mine or I am? They consider it to be none of these things. So we're taking bit by bit the four elements. Then if others abuse, attack, harass, and trouble that mendicant, they understand. And here we come to the insight practice. Again, another aspect when you're looking at the other. The other aggregates, the other khandas. This painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen in me. So that's a physical ear that's able to hear the sound. And the contact at the ear, that's dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. They see that contact, feeling, perception, choices, here sankhara again, and consciousness that arises at the contact are impermanent. So that's the 5 elements. And so we see them all here. And this reminds me of the Honeyball Sutta, where you have the physical. Oh, it's coming up. Actually, that's coming up. Based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided. So the element, if you were looking at each element and using it as a meditation, it can be a way to establish yourself in samadhi. And in the greater discourse to Rahula, there's all these beautiful similes where the Buddha encourages Rahula's mind to be like the earth, and the earth being so great and expansive that if people throw dirty things on the earth isn't upset. The earth isn't horrified or offended. So it's created this expansiveness of each of the elements can be used as an object of meditation. This is one way of understanding that. So based on that element alone, their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes detached. Others might treat that mendicant with disliking, loathing, and detestation. Strike them with fists, stones, and sticks and swords. They understand this body is such that fists, stones, sticks, and swords strike it. It's fragile. It's subject to breaking down. But the Buddha has said in the advice on the simile of the saw, even if low-down bandits were to sever you limb from limb with a two-handled saw, anyone who had a thought of hate on that account would not be following my instructions. My energy shall be roused up, unflagging, my mindfulness established and lucid, my body tranquil and undisturbed, and my mind immersed in samadhi.
I want to stress that, so there are things that happen in the world, and it's easy for us to become despondent. It's like when we get to that point of, okay, this is a case where I am not going to be able to dodge the blow, just with the capacities of myself or society, I'm not going to be able to dodge this blow that's coming. It's very easy for us to become despondent. And what the Buddha, or actually what Sāriputta, Buddha says it's two, but what Sāriputta is saying here is we still have this roused energy. We still have this capacity for equanimity, equilibrium. We still have the capacity to settle into samadhi stillness. So we don't become incapacitated even when there is very detrimental things going on in personally for us or in the world. It's a tough.
But there's also the simile of the saw where you contemplating the actually 3 of the 4 Brahma Viharas.
Yes,
that support the mind. The
power of love remains.
Yeah.
It is a stabilizing force. It's just to really counter that tendency to head toward either despondency or hatred.
Okay, so I'm going to ellipse through because we're going to
go into the next.
Because it
see, I was off at an appointment last week, so I didn't get to rejoice last week with on all of this stuff covered. So if I'm being redundant, that's
it's not. It's just a matter of what I'm kind of hoping
to.
I'm hoping to be able to get to the end of this. Otherwise,
otherwise
I don't want to do 3.
All right.
Okay, so now we're going to ellipse to the space. So at this point, if we follow the teaching and the simile of the saw and we establish ourselves in samadhi and mindfulness and energy, at this point, much has been done by that mendicant. And now we're getting to the space element. When a space is enclosed by sticks, creepers, grass, and mud, it becomes known as a building. I think it's probably a hut. See if I can find the word. Surrounded by.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Let's
see. No, wait.
What it would be? It would be a building, a house, hut. That's what I was looking for. In the same way, when a space is enclosed by bones, sinews, flesh, and skin, it becomes known as form. So now we're starting to reconstruct. We kind of deconstructed the body. Now we're reconstructing it. So this is how to consider the space element as all the orifices in the body. And you can start looking at internal space and external space and getting a sense of space in the room and things like that for a meditation. But he doesn't go into much detail with the space element, but he is putting things back together at this point. So Bhante Sujato says reverend for Avuso. It's kind of interesting. So then he's starting to talk again with insight practice. That this is what we didn't cover last time. So I want to at least have some time for this. Reverence, though the I is intact internally, so long as the exterior sights don't come into its range and there's no corresponding engagement, there's no manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. So this is we don't, if there's nothing visible, I would maybe in the dark. The sights don't come into the range. For those particular sights, there's no consciousness of those sights, those particular forms. Though the I is intact internally, that means it's functioning. It's a functioning I. And exterior sights come into range. So long as there's no corresponding engagement, there's no manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. So the engagement is our awareness. So this is actually maybe, so we're not aware we can be in a room and there could be something in the room that we don't notice until somebody points it out. Or I'm looking for something, I can't find it. I'm looking everywhere. And I'm just not aware of where it is. I don't recognize it somehow. I think many of us have had that experience. Somehow it's turned in a particular way or something, and we don't cognize it as what we're looking for.
Yeah, and your partner or friend or someone can walk in and, yep, oh, it's right there.
It's right there. If it was a snake, it would have bit me. But when the I is intact internally and exterior sights come into range, there is a corresponding engagement. There is a manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. So that means that we're aware of something, and it's within our visual range, and our eyes are functioning well. Then what we say, we see it, but we're basically we're aware of it, or there's I consciousness arises. So this is where it gets very interesting. The form produced in this way is included in the grasping aggregate of form. So that's both internally and externally. When the I is an easy one to use as an example, because we have interior forms and exterior forms. So that we have the I seeing, and the grasping aggregate of form arises. The feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness produced in this way are included in the corresponding grasping aggregate. So if any of you have read the Simile of the Saw, you have the I, and then you have forms, and then I consciousness, and the coming together of the three is contact. And when there's contact, there's feeling, which is weight enough. And when there's feeling, there's perception. And then at that point, it gets into thinking, which could be the sankhara, the choices. And then there's so the consciousness has already arisen. So that's already there. So all these things are coming together. This is all five aggregates arising at once. So there's the form of the I and the external physical forms and consciousness, and then there's contact, feeling, perception, sankhara, choices, and the consciousness is what arose at those three. I mean, I consciousness is involved in contact. So they understand this is how there comes to be inclusion, gathering together, and joining together into these five grasping aggregates. So all these aggregates arise simultaneously, or they're you have to speak about them one by one, but it is all kind of a coming together. It's actually what's really sparking it. What Sāriputta is saying here is that the awareness has to be present for this mechanism to occur. And like we were saying earlier, if I'm not aware there's something in the room, there's an elephant in the room, and I'm not aware of it, then I have no consciousness of it, the eye consciousness or the nose consciousness or whatever. I mean, you have to be aware for there to be consciousness. But the Buddha has said, one who sees dependent origination sees the teaching. One who sees the teaching sees dependent origination. And these
interesting.
5 grasping aggregates are indeed dependently originated. So moment to moment to moment, where these 5 aggregates are arising and different, it's a different manifestations through the eye door, the ear door, the nose, the tongue, the desire, clinging, attraction, attachment for these 5 aggregates is the origin of suffering. So we're going back to the Four Noble Truths. This is the first understanding. We've gone through the first noble truth, understanding of the first noble, and then the cause of the suffering is the second noble truth, giving up and getting rid of desire, greed for these 5 aggregates, grasping aggregates, is the cessation of suffering. So that is the third, the cessation. You're pondering something here.
Oh, this is the only we don't have a record within the suttas of the Buddha saying this. So there's no sutta where the Buddha actually has this quote. So it just was striking me as interesting as here Sāriputta is telling us something that Ananda hadn't captured in his collection of the utterances of the Buddha. And sometimes I feel like it's also useful to have that, maybe the wording of Sāriputta will land on us and help support us in seeing the Dhamma. It's such a profound teaching, and the phrasing of dependent origination, it's really seeing causation. It helps me a lot. This particular quote helps me a lot as I practice with
one who sees dependent, or the teaching sees dependent origin.
So
the Dhamma
sees the Dhamma.
So one who sees the Dhamma, see this Dhamma here.
Yeah.
Paucity. So this is vipassana I was talking about, having to see paucity. And there's a paticca samuppadam, arising together. There's a paucity again. So, and these 5 grasping aggregates are indeed dependently originated. They're originated. So he's just showing how they arise moment to moment to moment, not just at birth. Nama Rupa at birth, and then this whole process with all 5 aggregates again and again and again throughout our lives. And then we have these choices, how we respond. Or how do we choose to respond? Hatred with hatred, or respond to hatred with compassion, loving kindness, equanimity. So these are our choices here. The desire, clinging, attraction, attachment for these 5 grasping aggregates are the origin of suffering. Giving up and getting rid of desire and greed for these 5 grasping aggregates is the cessation of suffering. Whoops. I don't know how to stop that from happening. At this point, much has been done by that mendicant And then he goes through all the sense bases, through the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body. The mind is intact internally so long as exterior ideas don't come into its range. There's no corresponding engagement. There's no manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. So exterior ideas, maybe we hear something, somebody says something to us, the idea comes into our mind then. I'm not sure what I heard Bhikkhu Bodhi talking about this, and he wasn't quite sure what that meant either. Why is it doing that? So, but we have to be conscious. We have to be awake. We have to be, maybe there's thoughts floating through our minds and we don't even pay attention to them very much. Sometimes we say, why did that come into my mind? So I don't know if that's the exterior or if it's, I heard on the news something and then my mind is just inflamed with agitation because of something that I heard. Though the mind is intact internally and externally, ideas come into its range. So long as there's no corresponding engagement, there's no manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. So this is mind consciousness. But when the mind is intact internally and exterior ideas come into its range, and there's a corresponding engagement, so that's the engagement. So I think, yeah, I could just not be paying attention to what other people are saying, or just ideas are flitting through my mind and I'm not really paying much attention to it. They just kind of come and go. We don't, a lot of times we aren't aware of this until we start sitting on a cushion and we go, oh my goodness. It's quite a bit going on. The mind has a mind of its own. So this is the awareness. There's a manifestation of the corresponding type of consciousness. The form produced in this way is included in the grasping aggregate of form. So we may have a visual form, or I'm not sure exactly, but I is used as kind of a template for the rest of the aggregates. So it could be also the sounds, the touches, but that would be experience with a physical form, except for the mind. And the mind can have memory of touch, which is can have memory of smells. So I'm not sure exactly, but the grasping aggregate of form and the feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness produced in this way are each included in the corresponding grasping aggregate. So they're all arising at all the sense bases. You can see how feeling at a sound or feeling or like a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral touch, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral ideas. So that's Vedana, and then the perception, the sankharas, the choices, and consciousness. There's all the aggregates rising at once, and they understand. So this is how there comes to be inclusion, gathering together, joining together into these 5 aggregates, grasping aggregates. And there's this beautiful quote again that we only see here.
Yep.
But the Buddha has also said, one who sees dependent origination sees the teaching. One who sees the teaching sees dependent origination.
And this is a case where I wish you would just use the word Dhamma rather than teaching.
Okay. One who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. One who sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma. And these 5 grasping aggregates are dependently originated. Desire, clinging, attraction, attachment for these 5 grasping aggregates is the origin of suffering. Giving up and getting rid of desire and greed for these 5 grasping aggregates is the cessation of suffering. At this point, much has been done by a mendicant. That's what the Venerable Sāriputta said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what Sāriputta said. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Here's Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation of the part in regard to the first 3 noble truths. The desire, indulgence, inclination, and holding based on these 5 aggregates affected by clinging is the origin of suffering. The removal of desire and lust, the abandonment of desire and lust for these 5 aggregates affected by clinging is the cessation of suffering.
Sadhu. So that's
Yeah, those
two middle.
the
Second and third. So understanding the aggregates and so understanding dukkha, how and that there is dukkha, what it is, and then the cause is that's the first, is understanding, and the cause is the second, and the abandonment of the cause is the third. And then the Noble Eightfold Path, if we're following the Noble Eightfold Path, then we're able to actually actualize the cessation of suffering. So this is an amazing wisdom teaching given by Sāriputta. And it's interesting your point about the this quote here, because it's usually thus I have heard, and it's Ananda speaking, but obviously the other disciples of the Buddha heard the Buddha saying some things, and they're repeating it. He's referring to the simile of the saw. He's also indirectly referring to some of the teaching to Rahula when he's meditating like the earth. There's a number of things. Using the earth as a basis for meditation. How do we do that?
I feel like Sariputta's, this is something that I like to do, and I know Aya also does, is kind of aggregates teachings from various different suttas. And that's what Sariputta's kind of doing here. He's saying, the Buddha spoke about this and this and this, and he pulls it together into I'll use a word, practicable, a way that we could actually like systematically go through it. But he also doesn't just have a system, he's got heart qualities. Now, how we're showing up for it, it's just an incredibly rich sutta.
So I'm gonna, how can I navigate back to the Zoom thingy?
Do you want to close the screen sharing? That might help.
Okay.
So stop the share.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Okay.
And then you can, I just checked the chat. We don't have any questions in it at the moment.
So I'm gonna, we close with a Arahang, and then I'm gonna go off the YouTube, and then we can open it up for conversation. So you don't have to go away, those who are alive there. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sangha Sangho Sangham Namami.
Bye, YouTubers.
All right, let's see. Oh, here, this is what we
No, that was a good, yeah, that works. Yeah,
think we're off. There we
I
are.
managed. Yeah.
No, it's still on.
Oh, I find that one hard to touch. It doesn't seem to like, well, I find it easier to do it from this one. It doesn't seem to get my click and then it's not getting yours.